Today's guest is truly one of the legends in quilting. Researching her history really caused me to take a moment to consider, what am I bringing to the world? Am I making a difference? I marvel at her story, looking back at the incredible path she's taken, and I'm inspired not only to continue sharing wonderful stories on this podcast, but also to dive back into my own artwork to stretch my creative boundaries and just play. Today, I'll have a chat with Jean Wells. Hello and welcome to the Quilter on Fire podcast. I'm Brandy Maslowski, a former firefighter turned quilt professional. As a quilt teacher, speaker, and judge, I travel the globe to bring quilters more joy and less overwhelm. Not too long ago, the quilty life I now lead was just a dream. After many lessons and a lot of hard work, I've transitioned from juggling a day job and a quilting business on the side to becoming a full-time quiltpreneur. I started the Quilter on Fire podcast to create a vibrant community of quilters, artists, and makers. Each episode brings you inspiring stories, insights, and the pure joy of guests from all over the world. If their stories uplift you and spark joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and ignite that creative fire within you. Today, I'm chatting with quilter, teacher, shop owner, author, and community builder, Jean Wells of the Stitchin Post in Sisters, Oregon. From opening her quilt shop over 50 years ago to helping build Sisters, Oregon into a quilting destination known around the world, my guest today has spent decades bringing quilters together through creativity, education, and community. Through it all, Stitchin Post has garnered a reputation that feels warm, welcoming, and oh so quilty. Jean opened Stitchin Post back in 1975, making it one of the very first quilt shops in the United States. Over the years, she's become one of the most respected voices in quilting through her 30 books, her workshops, fabric collections, and her huge influence on the quilting world. Stitchin Post is not just a quilt shop, but a gathering place. While quilting has changed so much over the decades, Jean's focus has stayed the same: creativity, learning, and connection. So let's explore the story of Jean Wells. Jean, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I am so excited to be a part of this event coming up in the summer. I'm coming out to Quilters Affair to teach, but I've had this on my bucket list for years and years and years. I've been excited about the show. I've, of course, had your daughter Valerie on the website on the podcast in the past. And I've also had Dawn, the executive director of the show, on the show in the past. So we have some wonderful episodes out there in the world that we'll tell people all about a little bit later. But let's start with getting back into the history of your story. Where did creativity begin for you?
You know, I've thought about this a lot because I do teaching and I have a group that I work with now that I mentor. And so we get deep into things. And I think that creativity really starts with curiosity. And I think about when I was a little girl, my mom just put us outside to play. She didn't suggest us playing anything. We just played. And one summer, my sister and I went across the street. There was really tall grass in this field, and we stomped it down and made rooms. And that took us about a week. And it was like we had tea party over there. I mean, we had so much fun. But we used to just think up things to do.
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up thinking, what if? And I still do it all the time in my work.
Yeah.
And I also still am involved somewhat with the store just as an advisor for Valerie. And, you know, when I come up with an idea, I throw it out there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And can you imagine Valerie having her mom in the background, just throwing out random incredible ideas all the time? That would be wonderful.
I'm really careful that I don't put too many at once sometimes.
Yeah. And, you know, so was there, looking back at your early childhood growing up, was there someone who really shaped your creativity early on?
Well, I had two grandmothers that both did a lot of needlework. One did cross stitch. And
Mm.
she started me doing a cross-stitch tablecloth that took several years. And she would just keep it at her house. And if we got together, went someplace, she'd bring it and I would stitch on it. And then my other grandmother was a beautiful seamstress. I mean,
Yeah.
we would get wardrobes for our dolls for Christmas.
Yeah.
And she made clothes for us. And I still have those doll clothes and they're really amazing. So, both of those people, my mom wasn't interested much in sewing or needlework, but both the grandmothers were. I was born during World War II. And right after I was born, my dad was shipped to England and his plane was shot down and he ended up in prison camp. So when I was 2 months old, Mom and I moved in with my grandparents. And my mother and my grandma played a lot of bridge. And I spent a ton of time with my grandpa. And he used to say, Jeannie, you can be whatever you want to be. Jeannie, you're going to be something someday. And I didn't know what any of that meant. But to hear it over and over again, I still think about things that he said to me when I was really little.
Yeah.
And he was a big force in my life.
Really created a foundation of just self.
Mm-hmm. You can do it.
Yeah. Just, self-confidence or self-love, right?
Well, and I think I just didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
That I couldn't.
Yeah. So good.
Because that wasn't part of the message.
So growing up through your education, did you always know you were going to do something creative, or where did you go from there?
I didn't think a whole lot about it, but I wanted to sew so bad on the sewing machine. And finally, when I was 9, my mom gave in and said, okay. She didn't like any kind of messes at the house. So, I'd always have to tidy up. So I learned how to do that too. But when I was 9, I started sewing and I just loved it. And then Mom wouldn't let me make my own clothes until I took home ec. Mm-hmm. So I took 1 term of home ec, hated it because we had to make an apron. Oh. And that was the end of it. And I didn't take any more home ec, but I started making all my clothes. And my 2 sisters both did horse shows and 4-H and stuff. So I made their cowgirl shirts. And I was sure they were winning their ribbons because of my sewing.
Maybe.
But when I got ready to go to college, there wasn't anything else I was really interested in. And so I majored in home economics. Mm. And, I thought I really wanted to be a fashion designer. And my grandpa, who I just told you about, in between freshman and sophomore year, he sent me to New York. And I had an uncle on the other side of my family that lived in New York. He was in the military. And so I stayed with them and rode the train into New York City and went to Parsons School of Design. And you took 2 classes. And one of them was draping, working on the mannequin. And I could just whip out things like crazy. And the other one was you had to draw the fashion figure in 5 minutes.
Oh.
You had to be able to do these really fast sketches.
Wow.
And all summer long, I tried and tried and tried, and I couldn't do them. And I was kind of devastated because that had been my dream, was to be a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. And so I came back to school and thought, well, you know what? I could teach people how to sew. Mm-hmm. And so I made education my minor. Mm-hmm. And then when I student taught, I just blossomed. Oh. And I was top of my class that term. And there was something about the interacting with the kids and seeing them learn how to do things that just filled me up too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, that's the rest of my life. Everything I've done is really related to education.
Yeah.
And inspiration was just kind of built in. But, when I started the store, my tagline was inspiration and education, and it still is.
Yeah. So when did you make the transition from clothing to quilts?
Well, I was teaching home economics, and the school district had decided should have just boys classes and just girls classes, so boys could learn how to sew too. And so I was looking for a project for boys, and I found a book in a library, and it was from the UK, and there was a cushion in there, and it was a square sewed together, which the word patchwork wasn't a word that people were even using, or quilting. Nobody was talking about quilting. They were doing macrame.
Oh, yeah.
And sewing double knits and I didn't do either of those much. And so I thought, well, this project would be really good because they'd learn how to cut straight and sew straight, and they'd end up with something they could use. And it went really well. And what I enjoyed was putting together different colors. And that to me was really fun. And at about the same time, there was a Family Circle magazine that on the cover, they had a front porch and a little bench, and there was a log cabin pillow sitting on that bench. And I just honed into that pillow, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was really cool because it had all these different pieces.
Yeah.
And so it haunted me how to sew it, because I kept looking at the long pieces and saying, how do you get into the center?
Yeah.
And one day it dawned on me, if you started at the center, then you build it. You would have thought I invented log cabin. And it is my favorite block to this day.
Yeah, so fun. Okay, well, did you ever expect that this would become your career?
Not really. But, I'm a pretty open person. And I think a lot of that came from Pa, my grandpa, because he was still talking about, you can be whatever you want to be. There was something for me about interacting with students that really is rewarding to me, to being able to see somebody kind of frustrated or not know what they're doing or just clueless, and being able to give them enough tools and direction without, I don't like to be completely direct their design decisions.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important for people to do their taste level and those kinds of things. And I learn a lot from that too.
Yeah. And I love that so many of your workshops are giving skills, giving foundations, giving direction, but letting them go and do what they want to do from their own mind, right? I love that. Okay, so thinking about the timeline a little bit more, you were teaching, you got this great connection, you realized education was your thing. So how did you make the transition into quilt shop?
Well, I just started after that boys class. I came up with some projects that were patchwork.
Okay.
Without realizing what I was doing. Yeah. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And so I taught adult ed classes, and that's when I started doing more, like I thought I learned a little bit about quilts at that point. Yeah. Seeing some antique quilts. And then I remembered that my grandmother and my mom had quilts. And I played under the quilt frame when I was little at my grandma's house with her group. But they were all put away in the cedar chest. So they weren't hanging as art or anything. And the first quilt I made was for my son. And I was pregnant with Jason, but I didn't know if I was having boy or girl. So it's a yellow and orange quilt I made in a Jean Marie Laurie workshop.
Oh, yeah.
She taught for the Embroiderers Guild in Portland that I belonged to. Yeah. And so it was hand applique and hand quilting. And so I knew that was a quilt.
Yeah.
And then I took that idea and made a bed-sized quilt for my son. So that was the second quilt I made. Wow. And I just started trying different things, and I would just share what I did and teach a single concept. And it was mostly the engineering of the project. And then I found people to be nervous about color when it came to picking several things. Yeah. Like if you're going to make a dress, usually you pick one fabric, but having to pick more than one fabric and have them feel okay together So I used to teach all those real basic things about color wheel. I'd make the kids memorize all those things.
Yeah.
And I found what really mattered a lot of the time was the proportion you use the colors in from that color palette that you picked. So it was the practical way, and also trusting yourself on what feels right.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm still doing that today.
Yeah. So great. So can you tell us about the transition into having a quilt shop? And also, I want to go all the way from beginning of the quilt shop to now when you have family involved. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, hopefully it's not too big of a story. We decided to move to Central Oregon. There was a big resort that was, they had just started and people were building houses, and my husband was a builder. And its sisters is 20 miles from Redmond, where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I had taught in the Beaverton School District in Portland, which is huge. And I knew bigger wasn't necessarily better. And so we decided to live in Sisters. And because it was a really small town, I mean, there were only 14 children in his kindergarten class.
Yeah.
And Sisters was about 500 people. And we lived just out of town. We found a place to rent before we built a house. There weren't any home ec jobs in all of Central Oregon.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to keep teaching. And so I went to the community college and did adult education. And 25 people showed up for my first class.
Wow.
And they never had 25 people show up for anything in Sisters.
Oh, that's great.
So, and the only fabric stores carried double knits. And there was a store in Portland called Daisy Kingdom. And I had taught for Pat, the gal that owned Daisy Kingdom. And so what she would do, she would give me goods to bring to sell to the people because they couldn't get cotton fabrics.
Yeah.
And finally she said, Jean, I don't know why you don't just open a store. And I thought, well, I don't know how to do change. I mean, is that silly?
Yeah.
Because I'd always been camp counselor or worked in restaurants and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what I did was took my money out of our retirement account for teaching, and I had $3,200. Wow. And so that was my budget to start the store. And I loaded up Jason and Val in the car, and we drove to Portland, 3 hours away, and filled up the car with fabric and filled it up only spending $800. Wow. So in today's climate, when fabric is $100 a bolt wholesale, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
But, the kid to this day, the man that owns E.E. Shank, remembers the kids crawling around on the shelves while I was picking out the fabric for my store.
Wow.
And so I had to learn the business end of things.
Yeah.
Because I was really clueless. The creative part of it and the working with people came really easy for me.
Yeah.
So I eventually, about 9 years into doing the business, I ended up divorced, and there weren't any good jobs around in home economics. They were kind of easing that out of the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I thought, I just have to get better at what I'm doing. And I saw an article in our paper about a small business management program that you could sign up for. So I went into Ben to sign up for it. And they said, well, you don't meet our criteria because you had to have been in business 3 years or less. And I'd been in business 9. And I said, but I really need this.
Yeah.
I have to get better at this.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I'm sorry, you can't. Well, I did not give up. The fourth time I went in and asked again, finally they said, fine, you can be in the class. Oh. And I just loved it. It was from people that all had different kinds of businesses, and we met once a month. And then we had an advisor that came and met with us once a month for a half a day and worked with us on a one-to-one basis. And I ended up being one of their little prize students and on the state board after that. I just really dove in, but I knew I needed it.
Yeah.
And I remember they had us do a customer survey from where your customers came from.
Yeah.
And so I did it for a month. And it turned out only 35% of my customers came from Central Oregon, not just Sisters, but Bend, Redmond, Sisters. The rest were visitors because of the tourist industry that was really forming. And there were a lot of golf resorts and things.
Wow.
And so here I was spending all of my advertising dollars on 35% of my people.
Yeah. Wow.
And so one of our speakers that we had at our meetings was a man who had been very successful in advertising. And I loved his talk when he gave a presentation to the group. And then we got to each of us pick one of these people that had come and spoke to our groups to spend an hour with, and they wouldn't charge us. So I picked Peter.
Yeah.
And I told him, about my customer breakdown. And he said, have you considered trying to do something mail order? And that was when LL Bean started.
Yeah.
And that was a catalog. I mean, that was the first time we'd had a catalog.
Yeah.
And so he helped me figure out a newsletter. So I formed a club and we called it Fabric Finders. And I did swatches every month and talked about new notions and things. We gave them a free pattern for a quilt block. And it was so successful. I mean, it was amazing what happened with that.
Wow.
And it really grew our customers.
Yeah.
And it was like every customer didn't have to walk in the door.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that when COVID hit, a similar situation appeared because we couldn't have customers coming in the door. And Val was doing one newsletter a week online. And after a couple of weeks, she said, Mom, I really think I need to do 5.
Yeah.
And by that time, I had applied for us for the grant money. And we got a nice chunk of money. And we immediately just put it in the bank. And I had canceled every fabric order the first week when COVID hit because I knew we pay a lot of net 60, net 90 bills and that we wouldn't have the money to pay our bills.
Yeah.
And so Val brought back her person who was running our mailroom and then the person who was developing the newsletters once we gave them the ideas. So that team came back and until we could have people in the store. But it's just interesting how all of that happened.
Yeah. Well, and I love the parts of the story where you're changing when something strikes and you have to deal with it, you just shift and pivot and change and do what you need to do to keep going or keep growing. And then also you're always trying to be on the cutting edge by learning new business skills or learning new things, right? So I love that story.
I like being first.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing. You can catch that wave of people excited about the new thing, right? I love it.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us how, over the years with Stitchin Post business, how did you come up with the idea to also do not only were you running this business, but okay, that's not enough. Let's do a quilt show as well.
Well, but we didn't call it a quilt show. Here's what happened.
Okay.
I opened the doors the 23rd of May.
Yeah.
And there was another young woman in town who had a consignment store. And there was a new building that got built just half a block from me. And Kathy had moved in there. And she said, I want to have a summer festival.
Oh.
And she said, would you hang quilts? And I said, well, sure. I can just have a little quilt show. But I'd never heard the word quilt show before.
Oh.
It was just I was helping Kathy out. So I hung 12 quilts. But I had to go get them from my mom's cedar chest.
Yeah. Oh.
Because the quilts I had made, my kids had, and they were well used.
Yeah.
I had not made a quilt for myself for a bed or anything.
Yeah.
I was just doing a lot of projects and things. And so Kathy had all her pottery and her stuff outside, and I had the quilts. And it was interesting because women who lived in town came to town to see what was going on. And they said, well, Jean, we have to do this again next year. We have quilts.
Oh.
And so the next year, I think we had, about 25 quilts. And then I remember when we got to 50, we thought it was huge.
Yeah.
But it was something that just grew on its own. It took its own time. And, when I look what it is today, because it's 1,000 quilts and it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
No way would I just jump in and start something with 1,000 quilts.
Yeah.
But I grew up along with it. And, that incremental kind of success really drives what you do.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's a day of sharing and caring.
Yeah.
And we've had from time to time, mostly men that moved to town that thought we should be making more money off of it or whatever. They wanted it just to be a sale. Well, for me, the sharing was the foundation of that show.
Yeah.
And that you could put your first quilt in the show. There was no judging.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And I mean, you could see the QuiltCon quilts hung, and you know what they are like. They're just fabulous. On the next building might be a first quilt somebody made.
Yeah.
And to me, they're all special.
Yeah. It's a really good way to build community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you tell us about the family run side of things? So who are you working with and who does what in the business nowadays?
Oh, well, nowadays, Val is running the business.
Yeah.
And if she needs something from me, I'm here to help her out.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll think of things or think of ideas and I pass them along, but I don't sit there and expect her to do everything I bring up.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be hers and her agenda. And she's done some fabulous things with the shop. And we've had really good growth. And but I love it that I can still go there and get my mail and see what's going on. And my granddaughters are both helping out this summer. And last summer, my grandson was working there. Yeah. So it really is family. And I don't think the girls really wanted to work at the store that much when they started, but now they are really invested and it's just wonderful.
Oh, that's great. It's so nice that it's moving from one generation to another. And it's just the continuation of all that joy. I love it. Okay, so you are the founder of a successful quilt shop and an annual quilt show that you've been celebrating for over 50 years. So tell us what it's like to reflect on this monumental achievement, this lifetime you've had in this beautiful quilting industry.
It's actually really overwhelming. Last year was our 50th anniversary. Yeah. And Todd Hensley, one of the owners of C&T Publishing, had approached me to write a book the year before. Yeah. And, I'd already written 30. I thought I was done at 30. I didn't need to do 31. So, but I really was flattered that they would consider it something that could be appreciated by other people. Yeah. And so I started in and, I had to make a timeline for myself, which brought up a lot of things. Yeah. And then collecting some of the memorabilia from Quilt Show. We had two other directors before the one we have now. Yeah. And somehow in the transitions of moving from one building to the next or from one director to the next, a lot of things that I thought we had saved, they hadn't. And it's a good thing I used to just dump stuff in a box. Yeah. Because I got my box out and was able to really figure out a lot of it. But being in my 80s, it takes me longer to do things. Mm-hmm. And, I used to sit and whip stuff out. Yeah. But here I was. And we did a lot of, I had Dawn and Valerie both help me. And they sent out invitations to people if they wanted to write something. Oh. And so as those things came in, then we worked with that to put them with the other texts that I had. And there was just a lot of wonderful memories. And, so many people contributed to the book, and it's really to me, it's a beautiful book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a celebration of 50 years, and it all came together with such beautiful photography and everything. I just think
Well,
off the
Valerie
table.
was a photography major in college.
Oh, so that's why the
And
photos are so great.
and then Olivia loves photography, her oldest daughter.
Yeah.
And so, um, it was in June of the year before, we had some photos we wanted to take when it wasn't winter, so it would look like summer. So here we were in June doing photo shoots, and we had to turn the book in. I think it was the end of July. And so we're madly running around doing photo shoots, and it was so fun.
Yeah. Well, the snippets I've seen look absolutely fabulous, and I can't wait to see it in person when I come this summer. I'm going to take a look through the entire book. That will be so wonderful. So, Jean, when it comes to your personal quilting, let's get into that story a little bit. So, when inspiration strikes, what does your process look like?
Well, I'm going to back up just a touch.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I've always had my at-home sewing that was just for me.
Yeah.
And store sewing.
Yeah. Okay. There's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a big difference because you're making something a certain way to sell fabric.
Yeah.
And so I always needed my own personal dabblings, so to speak, just things that I wanted to try or do. And it's that curiosity again that pushes a lot of that. I would see something maybe that somebody came in with and think, that's really a cool color palette. Maybe I'll try it. So I think for me, being at the store, I was really exposed to a lot. And then I always loved going to market.
Yeah.
I mean, it wears you out. But, I've been to Houston 45 times.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Just shopping for the store.
Well, and I was there 2 other times teaching too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I would like to try things at home. And then if it worked out and I thought I could teach it, then I would go teach it. And then that led to writing books.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we didn't have all the social media where you see what everybody's doing all the time.
Yeah.
But C&T and I had a really good relationship. If I started seeing a trend in something, a lot of times I'd visit with Todd about it. And I really loved that relationship of working with them on things. And it worked out well for both of us.
So I love to hear how you're so inspired by having the shop and going to Houston over and seeing all the new things and keeping on top of trends. But how did you find over time that your personal art practice shifted from traditional quilting into being so artful?
Well, I think traditional quilting is like a foundation. And you learn a lot of skills, like the techniques for sewing different things.
Yeah.
And I think that foundation was really valuable to me, especially these days when I get people who've never sewn much and they haven't had any experience.
Yeah.
But what happened, Valerie had decided to move back to Sisters, and she actually came in to see if there were any jobs she could apply for. And I was so thrilled.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if she'd ever want to work at the store, and I never wanted to force it on her.
Yeah.
And so I was nearing 60, and I was at a point where I wanted to do my own work, and I wanted to do original work that wasn't off of a pattern, or I did not want to write a pattern.
Right.
Because I wrote so many directions over the years.
Yeah.
So I took a workshop from Nancy Crow, and it was called Line and Shape.
Yeah.
And it, we started out we had to design a block. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do. But, I didn't say anything. I just tried to be a good student. And finally, it was on the second day, she changed the shape she wanted us to work in. She wanted us to work in a real vertical shape. And we weren't supposed to work off of photographs or anything. But I always had inspiration photos, whether it was for color or whatever. I've always collected images. And so my girlfriend and I were sharing a room. And so that night, I went and started going through my photos. And there was a picture of, I took it when I was weeding and sitting on the ground. And here were these stems coming up, and then all these flower colors up here. And so I took my shapes that I was supposed to be working with, which I had a long rectangle, I had a little square. And so I did a structure like that, and she just thought it was brilliant. And I didn't tell her that it was inspired by my daisies at home.
Yeah.
But I realized then and there that people work different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole block thing, I was just burnt out on, from doing it for was good 30 years.
Yeah.
And so when I went out for a walk every morning, and I'm taking pictures of sticks and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend and I, on the next day, our assignment, you put up a piece of white solid fabric on your big design wall. And we had 20 minutes to cut out large shapes and just pin them up. And I thought, there's no way I was going to do something tedious. Yeah. So I just cut strips, but you could cut without a ruler. Mm. And I loved it because I like making organic lines. I mean, that's what I love rather than straight lines.
Yeah.
So I'm putting these things up horizontal, standing on my chair, and I'm partway down and I think, this needs something vertical. And so I grabbed a piece and put it vertical. And I got the shivers. We had a forest fire the summer before. Mm-hmm. And when I was driving over the mountain to go to this workshop, it's a blue sky day, and there was snow on the ground, and there was all these black charred trees. And I stopped the car and took pictures, and they felt like ghost trees to it. Wow. And so that's what I call them.
Yeah.
And I was so taken with that. And I realized on that design wall, I had made a ghost tree.
Wow.
Just putting up those strips. And it was transforming.
Yeah.
That you break things down to simple shapes.
Yeah.
And then after 20 minutes, we were supposed to cut little pieces, and we had 20 minutes to put those up. And I just put all this little stuff up the side. So it was vertical also. And she walks in the room, and she was clear across the end of the room. And she said, "Pine, you need to do a series." And I thought, yep.
So good.
I would be doing a series. But, these squares and rectangles, she said, well, those are pine needles and pine cones.
Yeah. And
I think it made me think about things I see in a different way.
Yeah.
That I saw them more as individual shapes. Yeah. And once I figured out how to sew a hand-cut line, and you can get those, that undulating kind of wandering look, it just felt like a whole door opened to me. And so Betsy and I, my friend, were talking on the way home, and we wanted to keep doing projects, but we both were going home to full-time jobs. Yeah. And she said, okay, let's not worry about designing something. Let's just pick one block and then make it abstract. So we picked log cabin.
Yeah.
And the photos that I sent you, the blue and red one, is the quilt I made.
Oh, wow.
And I also figured out how to do the teeny little narrow insert. Mm-hmm. And, that was just a dressmaking kind of technique. Yeah. When you want a small amount of something to show. And so my dressmaking really came into play with a lot of how do you sew it together.
Yeah.
And that quilt, and then I had seen G's Bend quilts in San Francisco that fall. And I remember how taken I was with the shapes of the pieces. Yeah. And the fact that if they ran out of something, they didn't have to find the exact same fabric again, because I had a store and people would come in and be mad at you if you didn't have the exact red or the exact pink And, there's some years when pink wasn't popular.
Yeah.
So that quilt, I was in the first book, and someone from Artists in Embassies program sent me a letter and asked if that quilt, one of the ambassadors that was going to Rwanda, he wanted to have it in his living room.
Oh.
So it went away for 2 years.
Wow. Oh, that's
so
really
it has, and it's all hand quilted too. And my
Yeah.
hand quilting is not real good, but it's one of my favorite pieces because I just kind of, I couldn't stop doing that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
And Betsy and I think it really helped. I had a friend to work with too. And we did that for about 6 months, and Val would kind of monitor us. It was really fun.
Oh, that's kind of cool. There's some really good nuggets in that story that are good lessons, like have an accountability friend. And sometimes you see things in the world. It's really cool to hear how your mind kind of takes the trees or the fire scene that you saw and abstracts it and brings it out in your work. I love that. That's really cool. Okay, so let's move into color, because you've mentioned that you have a good color foundation. You taught color and you made people memorize it way back in the days. But now you really love intuitive colors. So where do you find your color inspiration now?
All over the place. I know on Pinterest, a lot of times abstract painting, what happens when the people are painting, they'll get these, I call them no-name colors.
Yeah.
They might be brownish or greenish, but what went into them, and they're oddball things.
Yeah.
I'm real drawn to combinations that are unusual.
Yeah.
And I have one that I have used and used and used. And I took a basket and collected all these different fabrics that were out of that color palette. And I've made so many things out of that. And I'm going on about 8 years I still have that basket. And I replenish it from time to time. But I also find not only from art, but nature gives me a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
And I also, because Valerie's been a fabric designer for 27 years, she used to get the colors of the year books and the color trend books. Yeah. And we would look at those and try to figure out what we thought was, and she involved me in just looking at all that with her. And I love seeing all those things and what colors were going to be popular.
Yeah.
And of course, here's the interesting thing. They don't hit the quilting industry for at least 9 months.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
It's because that's how long it takes to get something produced.
Yeah. And what did you think last year when the color came out and it was white?
Well, I wondered what they were thinking.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was like, that's interesting.
I didn't pay much attention to it, actually.
Yeah,
but Val, she worked with Robert Coughlin for several years and would do the color of the year, a big quilt for them.
Yeah.
And she did some fabulous work. The highlighter yellow one, they did then an 18-inch pieces, and they sent out a pile of fabric. It was the same fabrics to 18 people. We all made something different. Then it was up at Quilt Market. It was really cool just to see how people use color.
Yeah, so fun. It's nice to have that little prompt, right? That creative prompt. There's one thing you have to do, which is the yellow, and let's see where your mind goes from there. I love it.
Well, the other thing that I do now, I have really taken and made, I call it a working vocabulary.
Okay.
A working color vocabulary. Because when I'm working with students and we're talking about what they have in front of them, I find that I will say, let's say they're working all with greens. Yeah. And I'll say, have you considered adding something to enhance it? I always try to use good language that's positive, but not, what are you doing? This looks terrible or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I bring up the value and intensity and temperature. And then the other thing is volume. And I went to a lecture once at Market when QuiltCon people were, the modern quilts was first a big deal.
Yeah.
And this woman did a whole lecture on volume.
Yeah.
And it was a white background. And I said to her later, because she had a booth right over by Val, I said, well, that's value. And she said, nope, we call it volume. And I thought, well, good. That's just fine. But to me, volume has to do with weight. And there's times when you have a color palette and your proportion of how you're using your colors is off.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. And balance is really important. And so I have words like that I use. And I just think, like, when you look at a photograph and you just love the colors, it isn't just the colors, it's the proportion they're used in.
Yeah.
So then you need to go to, and I just do percentages like 20% green, 40% blue, 2% magenta, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that is very helpful to people. If they want that same look, they're going to have to use the colors in the same proportion.
Yeah.
But you also can use that as a starting out point of what would happen if I change the proportions. And if you have a bunch of swatches and you have your students do 2 or 3 different palettes all from the same pile, it's really interesting what they start pairing up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So you mentioned earlier that you had a big milestone birthday recently. You've entered your 8th decade. So what parts of quilting and your creative practice are keeping you busiest right now? What's your focus?
I've sewed my whole life and I love to sew.
Yeah.
And 15 years ago, we sold our family home and built a house in town. And I got a studio for the very first time.
Oh, wow.
I'd sewed in the basement, in the spare bedroom, all over the place. But I just like the pace that I have now. And I also am doing a lot of teaching at the store. I used to go all over the place and went international to teach also.
Yeah.
And now I just teach at the store, but I can do my longer workshops. I love doing 4 and 5 day workshops where you really get to interact with people for a period of time.
Yeah.
And you can really build on experiences and stuff. And I can sleep in my own bed. So
yeah, you like the longer workshops. And you've also mentioned that really wonderful mentor group.
Yeah, it kind of came out of, I just called it Adventures in Art Quilting.
Yeah.
And I was teaching it as a once-a-month class several years ago. And it was so popular. And then I started doing 2 of them. I kind of got burnt out a little bit. And I thought, I want to have a smaller group and change up. And I want them to pick out what they're going to make, not have it be me give them an assignment every time.
Yeah.
Because, someone who has some experience and wants to get better, part of what they need to do is know how to pick things. And I'm there to work with them. Yeah. But I don't want to say you have to do this 9-patch or something. So I just kind of changed it up, and I found that 14 is a good number for me. So I have 14 people. But the group I have right now, some of them have been in it for all 3 years, some of them just for 2 years. Yeah. But it's amazing the work that they're doing. Yeah. And I bring in speakers, and I bring in people that are artists in other genres. Like we have a collage woman who does some beautiful work. And then there's a woman that I collaborated with who is a painter in Bend. And we had several gallery shows and sold our work together. But we used paper and fabric together and stitching. Yeah, so great. And so I learned from Judy, and she learned from me. And that was a great experience. So yeah.
And you're also have you already finished, or are you in the process of doing the Connecting Through Stitches videos?
Well, that was just something I thought I always have something I'm stitching. Yeah. And during COVID, I did a whole lot of stitching. And so I said to Julie, who was our class coordinator, I said, Julie, I was thinking, what if I do a program that is 20 to 30 minutes once a month and just share stitching things?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to do it as a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we thought it's going to work much better to do it as a video.
Yeah.
Well, we have 125 people doing it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I thought, you're kidding. I didn't know it would be that popular, but people send me pictures of what they've been doing, and it is so fun.
Oh,
and then
great.
Violet, that you saw earlier, that was helping with the microphone.
Yeah.
She's our person who was doing videos moved. And so Violet, Val asked Violet if she would do them. And so the first one, we had to figure out how we were going to do it. And now it's just amazing. She comes up with ideas for me too.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful.
So it's worked out really well.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a couple of the books already, but I don't want to just glaze over that because it's such a huge part of your legacy that you've brought to the quilting world over all these years. 30 books is a huge accomplishment, plus the 50th anniversary book. So let's take a look back at the very first book that you created. Where did it start?
Well, this is interesting because I was asked to teach a class at this woman was having a little quilt show in Portland. And I had been making a lot of clothing, quilted clothing.
Yeah.
And, being a home ec teacher, you always made your own handouts.
Yeah.
And so I just did handouts. And this woman saw them and she said, Jean, that could be a book. And I said, no, that's a term paper. I'm not doing term papers. And she said, no, you could do it.
Yeah.
And I sat down to do it. And I had all of the content sitting there. I just had to describe it.
Yeah.
But I can remember it's so different than being in the classroom because you aren't getting any feedback.
Yeah.
You're sitting all by yourself in front of a typewriter.
Yeah.
Well, and in my very first books were all handwritten, and then I gave them to a woman to type for me.
Oh, wow.
Because I wasn't a very fast typer.
Yeah.
And then I would do all my sketches and all of that stuff. And the very first book I did was called Patchworthy Apparel. And yours truly was the publisher. And that was the company that Marty Michelle started.
Yeah.
And I was one of her first authors.
Wow.
And then C&T Publishing started up and I was their second author.
And so did you go from Patchworthy Apparel to Patchwork Quilts Made Easy? Was that the next?
No, there were several. I did 4 or 5 books I did a Hearts book, fans, memorabilia quilting. I was doing a lot with buttons and laces and, doing a lot of embellishing.
Yeah.
And, today some of that's kind of coming back.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is go do it again.
You invested time in that already.
I pulled a bunch of it out last year and we had it on display at quilt shows. So that was great for people to see. And
yeah,
I had pictures of my 2 children out in the woods on a photo shoot. I mean, it was really fun.
Oh, fun. Do you have all 30 books safely stowed away on a shelf somewhere?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's good to look back on all of those. So you've done 30 books over time, and the intuitive color and design one, though, you had a second edition and then also Journey to Inspired Art. Were those, all 3 of those sort of spawning off of each other?
They do.
Yeah.
The first one was the one that had the blue and green cover.
Yeah.
And that quilt is actually in the collection at Paducah.
Oh, wow.
So that's exciting to be in a museum collection.
Yeah.
And that was the first book. And then it went really, really well. And Todd said, well, Jean, do you have more ideas? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm doing new stuff.
Yeah.
And so we put together more of that. And then it was, I think, 4 years later, he said, we really want to redo the first one. Mm-hmm. And I said, but I feel it has to have some new content.
Yeah.
And because I don't like to buy things when I've already had it. But we kept the iconic things that we felt were really important. And then what I wanted to do with that, because I said to myself, this is plenty. You don't need to do another one.
Yeah.
And I've done so much teaching. I have certain things that I know work well in the classroom. It's like, what do you do when you get stuck? How do you evaluate your work? So I took those kinds of things and developed content on that. And it turned out we needed the book to be bigger, another 16 pages. And my editor said, oh, they never let us do more pages. And I said, well, I'm going to ask. All I can do is say no, but I'm going to ask because I really felt like that it would make the book more special.
Yeah.
And so they said yes, right off.
Oh, good. Well, you know that the first ones went so well if they're saying yes right away to you when you're working on the next one.
Well, something that I think really helped me, when you think about careers, not everybody owns a store and teaches and has a career.
Yeah.
The fact that I did all three, I knew about budgets.
Yeah.
I also knew about you don't want to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
Because, trends come and go.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty savvy about marketing as much as anything. And I think that always when I went to teach places, I got more information.
Yeah.
And I'm one that was really honed in on what people are doing and what's popular and not popular and whatever. But, my career was really such, I think it had longevity because of the different kinds of things I did.
Yeah.
And the fact that the foundation is the people part. It's sharing and trying to inspire other people and help them be successful.
Yeah. And if people bought the first book and a second one came out, the same title, but a different color, they were probably thinking, oh, well, that's Jean Wells. So this book's going to be amazing too. And it's going to be totally different.
Well, or I already bought it. I better take a look at it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So I'm going to take a moment here to feature the website. So the website is stitchinpost.com without a G. So Stitchin without a G. This shop is one of the first quilt shops opened up in America 51 years ago. And this family is still celebrating, supporting, and encouraging creativity. On the website, you'll find the shop with thousands of products, the education with classes and the quilt shop, the annual Quilters Affair, which is the educational component, of course, as well, and all kinds of inspiration, including free patterns, tutorials. So be sure to go and check out that website if you're listening to the podcast today, and go and sign up for their newsletter, because that's where all the great stuff comes out. It keeps you up to date. It gives you all the latest things that are happening. So Jean, back to the story. Is there a project or quilt that's been especially meaningful for you along the way?
It's interesting because I'll get really interested in a subject or a technique or something, and I just completely immerse myself.
Yeah.
And I want to know if I can do it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the unknown. I don't enjoy just doing things I already know how to do as much.
Yeah.
And like the quilt behind me here, that quilt, I had a photograph of a stump that was rotting, and I liked the line work. And I enlarged the photograph first, and then I traced the line work. And when you use tracing paper, it deletes a lot of the little detail.
Yeah.
So it really simplified the lines and shapes. So then I had a lot of start and stops to be able to do this, but I did it. And Ruth McDowell had written a book on piecing, and she was amazing, the kinds of shapes she could piece together. And she came up with some techniques that really helped me to be able to make this quilt. But, last year I had a quilt I've been dying to make for 20 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
We have the Cascade Mountains that we can see from our house. And there's a hike you can take up to, it's called Broken Top. Yeah. And at the top, there's this rock formation that's called MacArthur Rim. And it just looks like these stones were pushed out of the ground. And it's so dynamic. And I took a photo 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I have kind of a bad ankle, so I can't walk up there anymore.
Yeah.
And I finally made that quilt this year. And I mean, and I ended up making it out of silk. And I had to put fusible on the back of all the silk pieces. But I made it and I did it. And I just really proud of myself. But, there's other things I want to do now, once I'm done with that. And I think I still just like to figure out if I can do something.
Mm-hmm.
And what really works for me is that I start with inspiration and plenty of fabric. I try to always have more than I think I would ever need. And I like it when ideas present themselves along the way. If I know the end result already, to me, it's just labor.
Yeah.
And I still make those kind of quilts. Like I make graduation quilts for the grandkids and things.
Yeah.
But I really love to be immersed in the design process.
Yeah. So what was that quilt called? Is that the one that went to Quilt National?
No, that was kind of a silly project. And I always thought, I just really want to go to Quilt National,
Yeah.
And that summer I was getting ready to go to Birmingham Quilt Show in the UK. It's really a good show.
Yeah.
And I was having a special exhibit, so I had to take a lot of quilts with me. And I knew I would be sitting around in the booth, and I have a hard time just sitting still.
Yeah.
And I wanted a project that I could hand sew. And so I thought, I'll just cut out squares. But then I didn't want to put hearts on them or other squares or something. And I'm collecting rocks all the time.
Yeah.
And finally it dawned on me that I could just go out in the garden and bring some rocks in and trace them, the shapes.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And I think I had 28 of them when I went, and I hand appliqued the shapes, and then I embroidered on them. And I had the best time, came home, put them up on the design wall, and thought, what am I going to do with them now? Mm-hmm. I thought, I think I'm going to make more. Well, I kept making more and more and more. And that quilt is pretty good size. But you can tell what it is. It's not real abstract.
Yeah.
Like when you think about a lot of the QuiltCon quilts and things. And Deborah Brochart was here teaching at Quilters Affair. And she said to me, well, Jean, are you going to enter that quilt in Quilt National? I said, are you kidding? It's rocks.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't stop looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I had not thought of my quilt in how people would view it.
Yeah.
And so I try to share that with people, that getting people to want to take a second look.
Mm-hmm.
So I really talk a lot about scale.
Yeah.
Changing up. Everything doesn't have to be 4 inches.
Yeah.
Some can be 2, some can be 5, some can be whatever. But I really learned a lot from that experience of making that just really simple quilt.
Yeah. So great. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about community because I know that means a lot to you. So how is community infused into the family business?
Well, we started out, there was the gal, Kathy, who had the little boutique, and myself. Everything else in town, there was a little store that you could get groceries at, and a couple gas stations and a couple restaurants, and that was it.
Yeah.
And when they were building this Black Butte Ranch, this really nice resort, they didn't want to do a commercial area, so they put money into City of Sisters if we would do an 1880s, 1850s, or 80s style false fronts on the buildings. So the community started doing that. And I think, I didn't know not to do it. I mean, I'm sure people looked at, she's opening a fabric store in Sisters, but I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought it through that way. And what happened was that my naive experience, I thought there was an opening on school board. Well, I've been a teacher.
Yeah.
I could run for school board, so I did.
Yeah.
And I was the only woman. And for 6 months, nobody talked to me
Wow.
at the board meetings.
Yeah.
And then we had trouble with the teacher, and I knew what we were going to have to do and spoke up. And then I was chairman from the rest of the time.
Wow.
And then we formed a chamber of commerce so that we could work together. As there got to be, people would open up smaller shops. And that's when you started getting gift shops. And then there was a girl that opened a yarn shop. So, I really grew with sisters, I would say, more than anything. And then going through the small business management program really helped me to look at the big picture and to be more business-like.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads us right into our first quote, actually. I asked you for some quotes you love, and you gave me 3. But let's start with this one. Count the pennies, the dollars will come. What does that mean to you?
Well, that's my dad. And he was, it was later in life, and he couldn't drive himself over to a funeral he wanted to go to that was 2 hours away. And so I offered to drive him, and I was kind of whining about business not being very good. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And he said, Jean, you count the pennies, the dollars will come. And I just never forgot that. And it's what it means is honing down to what's really basic.
Yeah.
And working off of that. And, things do come, and you just have to have patience and make good decisions.
Yeah.
And, because we order, these days we're ordering out 9 months. It used to be 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people warehouse fabrics.
Yeah.
So the business is not anything like it was, a few years ago.
Yeah, it's changed a lot over time. Okay, and another quote you already mentioned was mind over matter.
Yeah, well, that was my dad. When us girls there were 3 of us, and, if we started to whine about something, he would just go mind over matter. And, I've just never forgotten that. And I just think about him now, as I get older, as an adult, being in prison camp with a broken back and never got any medical attention at all the whole time. He had to learn how to crawl and then walk and he lived to 86.
Yeah.
So he did really well. But, I just think when he was giving these freedom talks, he and some of the other veterans around Central Oregon, to all of 5th graders. And I went to one of them, and I didn't realize he didn't have any socks the whole time he was in prison camp.
Wow.
He had no socks.
Yeah.
And he was just obsessive about socks.
Wow.
Yeah.
One little tidbit really makes you put things in perspective, right?
And I think that putting things in perspective, it's easily to get overwhelmed and to start being hard on yourself when you're having a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
Being afraid.
Yeah.
And feeling very alone. A lot of times I felt so alone, but I just had to keep going. And then you celebrate the good times too.
Yeah.
And, it's the people that I've known through all these years that are so special.
Yeah.
And to see quilting grow like it did, because nobody was making quilts when I opened the store, to speak up.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so the third quote that you mentioned to me is more of a creative quote. It goes like this: Nature always wears the colors of the spirit, by Emerson. So how does this show up in your work?
Well, I think it really shows up these days because most of my palettes come from Mother Nature. Yeah. And just photographs that I take. And my son is a fly fisherman, and I get photos from him all the time of wonderful stuff too. Oh. And a lot of times I'll just see one part of a photo that looks interesting, so I'll crop and get rid of some of it till the proportions feel right of a color or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's probably because I grew up in a small town near the mountains, and I just always loved the mountains.
Yeah.
But yet I can go to a city or another country and I get all inspired there too.
Yeah. Okay, so right now we are going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk all about Jean's studio space, what brings her joy, and what's coming soon. We'll be right back. Quilters and quilt shop owners, can we talk for a second? We hear you're looking for more Canadian products for your shops. You want to support Canadian, but don't know where to start. Enter Erie Quilt Art, a Canadian distributor of quality quilting notions and patterns that makes it easy to find Canadian products. With an easy-to-navigate website and a dedicated section for Canadian, shopping Canadian has never been easier. Carrying notions such as the Acorn Precision Piecing System and the Creative Mediums by Wonderful, and patterns by the Blanket Statement, Modern Blended Quilts, Tamaricate Designs, Art East Quilting Co., and more, you're sure to find plenty of Canadian inspiration. Head over to www.eriequiltart.com to get started. Shop owners can place orders directly from Erie Quilt Art, and quilters can ask your local quilt shops to bring in the products you wish to purchase. And we are back with Jean Wells. Jean, what does your studio space say about you?
Well, I'm really blessed that we built our own house. We knew we needed a smaller house. We found a lot in town, and we went from 8 acres to a lot in town, but it had a mountain view. And we wanted a real eco-friendly house too. And so we did the radiant, or our floors have the sun comes in and heats the floors. Oh. And there's a system underneath there that heats our house. And then we have solar also. And so we really liked our house. And I said to John, do you think I could have a studio, a real studio? And he said, well, I don't know why not. And we worked with a really practical woman who wasn't an architect. She was a designer. And she had us measure everything in the old house, how big it was, and then decide what we wanted to live with in the new house. And so our spaces are, there's nothing huge space.
Yeah.
But there was a place where you could have a family room or something. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we decided would be my studio. Mm-hmm. And then when we were building the house, the contractor said, well, you have space over your garage. Why don't you just put a loft up there? And we hadn't planned on doing that. So I ended up with a staircase in my studio. But we went to the local fellow who does a lot of work with metal and designed the railings. So, it was really fun. And John and I just had a ball, doing the house. The studio isn't huge, but I do have really good fabric storage because I took the main wall, and when I push this,
oh, nice,
it's like a closet all behind this.
Yeah.
And then there's 4 of these doors, and you mount them so that there's about an inch apart.
Yeah.
And so they can go in front of each other, and they're hung from the ceiling.
Oh, sounds like there's like 4 design walls behind you.
Yes.
Yeah, so great. Oh, that would be such a dream come true. Well, that's lovely. It sounds like a beautiful studio space. So what brings you the most joy creatively?
I think it's figuring things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I do a lot of tracing. I really like rock formations because I like what Mother Nature does with line and shape.
Yeah.
And so I'll take a photograph, and then I will take and trace it. And tracing, you don't get everything. So then I'll crop into that and come up with something that feels like nice lines and shapes. And then I just kind of wing it from there. I'll start with one piece and I'll pin colors up, like where I think I want to be. And I don't always pick a color palette that was the colors in the picture.
Yeah.
Because the picture, I just want the lines and shapes. so
Yeah.
I can use them for anything. And that's really fun to do.
Yeah.
And I, a lot of times, encourage my students, I'll give that as a little assignment, just to get them launched, so to speak.
It's almost like you're putting pieces of a puzzle together in your mind, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I have good technical skills because I did so much clothing and tailoring and things over the years that I can figure out how to sew almost anything.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you get in a pickle, you applique it.
Yeah.
Or you hand sew it together. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I just had a friend tell me how she accidentally burnt a hole in her quilt with a bedazzler, and applique was the solution.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the best thing you do to care for yourself?
Well, I love to garden.
Okay.
Totally obsessed about plants. But we live in an area where we only have about 45 to 50 frost-free days a year.
Yeah.
So you have to do it quick.
Yeah.
And right now is when I'm getting everything planted. And, in January, I start dreaming about what I want to do differently. Do I want to try some new seeds? And we also live where there's deer. So I have a fenced-in area that's right outside my studio. So I can sit in the studio and look at my garden and the mountains, and it just doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, that sounds so great. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the quilts. We already mentioned a few that are really memorable for you, but let's get into some current quilts. The first one I want to talk about is In Celebration of Log Cabin. Now, you mentioned it already. Let's go into a little more detail.
Well, what's interesting about that, John and I had gone to Italy, and when we were in Italy, there was a rock wall that I took a photograph of. And at the time, that was 20 years ago. And I thought, well, here's the tiny little rocks in between the bigger rocks. So I had different shapes and sizes and things. And I thought, well, I could do my little detail piecing in there, because I love to piece little tiny stuff together.
Yeah.
And create like little jewels in a piece. And I was teaching someplace in Texas, I don't remember where, and we had long lunch hours. So I got my tracing paper out and put it over the top of the rocks, and I was doodling. And I started drawing log cabins inside all of those rocks.
Oh.
Well, I could have got right on the plane and come home and made it. I was so anxious to go make it.
Yeah.
And then there was a woman in class that had a photograph of, it was kind of a deserty plants. And I kept admiring it. So she gave it to me the last day. So that was where I got the color palette for that. And there was a lot of purples and, the greens. But the thing that was interesting, I made a couple blocks and put it up in the design wall, and it was missing something. And I had missed the little streaks of yellow in the photograph.
Yeah.
So then I started adding those little bits of yellow and yellow orange. And all of a sudden that thing just came alive. And I love that quilt.
Yeah, I love that quilt too. And one thing I really love looking at, just my eye just draws around the whole quilt, is the shapes of the log cabins are all different. You have square ones, long ones, tall ones, wide ones, and those little pops of yellow, those tiny, tiny slices everywhere. It's just like a story that you want to unfold, right? So I love that. Now let's go ahead.
C&T did a book last year on color.
Yeah.
And that got to be in the book.
Oh, that's so
exciting. And it got to be on the cover. I was very excited.
Oh, that is a milestone for sure. Okay, let's move into your garden and talk about where the birds sing.
Oh, I belong to a group that started 20 years ago. We call ourselves the Journeys Group because we're on a journey. And it was after they saw, when I came back from the Nancy Crow class and was doing what I was, they wanted to do stuff like that too. So that's how we started the group. But we still, every year we do a challenge, and it was my own backyard. And I kept thinking I was going to do my MacArthur rim quilt. And then I didn't give myself enough time to work on it. And I couldn't decide what to do. Finally, I thought, I'm going to do just look at one of my photographs from Gardens in the Summer, and I do those colors. And I had some chunks of fabric that didn't make it into a project, and there was a lot of the olivey greens and pinks.
Yeah.
And I added, and they were all just solid. And I thought, I need some patterning, simple patterning, because it'll make it more interesting. And then I added orange, and I chopped up a bunch of those blocks, and then I would take and sew things together and then slice them again.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got really, well, I love the technique because it designed itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to be willing to do the slicing.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, though, of stems and color.
Yeah.
And that was what I had in my mind. And it just turned out the size it turned out.
Yeah. Well, and you can definitely see the vertical stems. You've added the patterning in there, and leaves are popping out everywhere. And then when it gets up to the glorious color of the flowers, it kind of ends abruptly with the sky area, and the flowers just really pop out. It's just gorgeous. And it almost looks like a abstracted geometric version of a flower garden or a flower patch, right?
Uh-huh.
So really,
well, it was just me looking out the window when I'm sewing.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the stitching as well, because how do you decide what you're going to do with all of this geometric sort of abstract patchwork? How do you decide what you're going to stitch on top?
Oh, you mean quilting?
Yeah.
I almost always take my ideas from the shapes of the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I look for things to mimic
Yeah.
because I feel it's your last opportunity to tell a story. And so I look for things to repeat in some way. I don't like to put something completely different shapes on top of something that I've pieced like that.
Yeah.
If I could do straight lines, I guess. But and there is a lot of straight lines because I had all those stems. But I don't want the quilting to be more important than the piecing. And, it's that balance you have to find. And what is the last thing you need to do to tell a story and finish it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it really jives well with the background, because actually the quilting is a little bit more realistic than the abstract piecing. You know what I mean? Like you actually have those little petals and the leaves and the little, almost like those little thin wisps of grasses and flowers that you'd see in between the big flowers, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, you did.
I'm looking at it at the same time as I'm talking to you, and I'm just kind of in awe. So I'm like, it really works well together.
Well, thank you. I love that piece.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the big news coming soon. So, of course, we have Quilters Affair coming up in July 2026. So what are you excited about right now for this year's events?
Well, I'm kind of excited because I don't have as many obligations.
Oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, there was so much going on with the 50th.
Yeah.
And I had over 100 quilts in the show.
Wow.
And just organizing all of that was a big job.
Yeah.
And I don't have that huge a job this year. I always take the responsibility, because I'm on the board of directors for Quilt Show, that I will be in charge of the teacher exhibits.
Okay.
And see the teachers, we have a special exhibit for them, and we have it in the park.
Yeah.
And so I find the people to hang and take down the quilts, and then the hostesses to help out. And so I've been working on that. And then we do a lot of board related things just to help Dawn out with stuff. And I just am going to enjoy getting to spend more time looking at quilts.
Yeah. Oh, that's
exciting. And
exciting.
the other thing that I still do, and I am bringing somebody in. I want to start training so they understand how to make decisions, because we have 1,000 quilts to place.
Yeah.
On buildings. And years ago, I came up with the idea with a friend to take a photograph of each building and then put it at the top of the paper, and then down below put the measurements, like how wide it is and how long you can hang something. And then each of those is an individual, and it's pinned up on a wall. And you pull one of those sheets down. And then I have a team of 12 women. And then they go find 12 quilts they feel have something in common. Because for me, it's really important that it looks coordinated and it looks like some thought went into it and not everything just willy-nilly all over the place.
Yeah.
But, that goes back to the Stitchin Post too.
Yeah.
I always think presentation is really, really important.
Yeah.
And we're known for that.
Yeah.
I think you'll be blown away when you see the store.
I'm so excited.
Val has an employee who's really good with display, helping Val.
Oh, nice.
I can't lift as many things as I used to.
Yeah.
But I go down there and do the little displays when they invite me if they need another set of hands. And next week, that's what they're going to be doing is reorganizing everything. But I feel that way about the quilt show too, that it's like inviting people over to your house for dinner.
Yeah.
I would clean up a little bit.
Yeah.
And make everything look nice.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm going to say something to the audience right now. So if you're listening right now and we've piqued your interest with the show and the quilt shop and everything, we go into really great detail with that on the podcast because I've already had your daughter, Valerie Wells, on this show. So you can go and find episode 209 and listen to that full episode about her story and the quilt shop. There's all kinds of information there. And we talk about every single detail of the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show because I've had Executive Director Dawn Boyd on episode 212. So leading up to the workshops and events in Sisters this year, I invite you to listen to those 2 episodes that celebrated their 50th anniversary last year. They're episodes 209 and 212. So go back and take a listen to that. So Jean, back to you though, because this is such a wonderful episode all about your story. What is on your design wall right now?
Well, actually, what's behind me?
Well, anything. What are you working on right now?
Well, what I'm working on, I was teaching a class a couple of weeks ago, and one of the students came from Hawaii, and she's a gal that has been lots of my classes, and she does a lot of dyeing. And she and her friend came, and they were talking about rust dyeing and doing it on indigo.
Oh, interesting.
And so I said, well, would you ever show the girls how? So I got all the stuff ready for them. And they did some dyeing, and I got the pieces.
Oh,
so I brought them in some scraps of fabric.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just obsessed with this indigo color and the rust that I got. Yeah. And so this quilt is a lot of indigo and really intense rust. And I used one of my rock photographs and I took and cropped it to spots that I really liked. And I've just been going crazy sewing.
So tell me a little bit more about the process of that indigo and rust. Was it all happening at the same time or did they do it separately?
No, the indigo fabric, I had scraps left over. And here's a piece.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. That's gorgeous.
But I'm finding the values are both dark.
Yeah.
So it's not showing up as well as this had a lot of white area on it. You can see where I've cut into it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But these two together with the indigo, and it's mostly indigos. And I made myself go really dark indigo and then come a little lighter just to get a little bit of value change. But it's pretty strong feeling. Yeah. And this stuff is more like accents. Yeah. And then I pulled some other rust, but it's interesting how one thing leads to another. And this is why I still do all this stuff, I think. Yeah. Because I just get another idea. Well, I have some little pieces, scraps. So I'm going to make something small with the scraps and use it in my class that I'm teaching at Quilters Affair, just for a piecing assignment.
I think it's really fun, actually, that you've been teaching all these years for decades, but you're also still delightfully inspired by your students to do things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's have some fun and go into the lightning round robin now. So
Okay.
this is called the lightning round robin. It's fast and fun. So are you ready?
I hope so.
Okay. What is your favorite tool or notion?
My seam ripper.
Everyone
and
loves
my Kai scissors.
Oh, your Kai scissors. Okay, sounds good. How many UFOs do you have going on right now?
Not very many, because this time of year, I really make myself finish up stuff because quilt show's coming.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to have things hanging over me.
Yeah.
So my one I'm working on right now, I guess.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to start on next.
Oh, I love your get it done attitude. That's great. Okay, what's a skill you'd still love to learn?
I think there's still design things that I really can get better at and more confident.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that, I take workshops. If we have a visiting teacher and it's someone that doesn't mind if I come to class, sometimes people are intimidated and that embarrasses me. But I took a workshop from Irene Roderick a while back.
Yeah.
And it was, by the time I got done, I got just obsessed and I just did her technique exactly what she said, and it worked so well. And she said, Jean, what's really special about your quilt, you may have been in my class, but it's your voice.
Yeah. Oh.
And I think I kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, because when I picked my palette, I had a couple batiks that I liked, and then I had a Marcia Dursey fabric I liked, and a couple indigo things.
Yeah.
And they were the right colors, and I just kept them kind of aside and had all my solids out there.
Yeah.
But I just started sneaking them in. And so it's a real mixture.
Oh, and well, it's nice to see that you are still so inspired by taking educational classes. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any collections of any kind in your home?
I started collecting Barbara Campbell pottery. She started coming over to an art show here in Bend every year. And these were hand-shaped pieces, not done on a wheel. She would roll out the shape and then she would imprint line work on them from, roll them in something that indented and then rubs black on it. And so you see all this black line work. Yeah. I mean, I just love her stuff. And no two pieces were exactly alike.
Yeah.
And we actually sold her work in the store for a long time too.
Wow.
But she's since moved to Mexico. And she's still doing pottery down there. But I have a large collection of her pots.
That sounds fabulous. Okay, so what is your proudest accomplishment?
I think it's my family.
Yeah.
My children.
Yeah. I mean...
and grandchildren.
Yeah.
It's really special.
Absolutely. Well, I love how they're all coming together, even just to help you set up your audio today. Taking over.
Thank goodness for teenagers.
Yeah. Being a part of the business. You've created such a wonderful community and legacy. And the fact that they're a part of it is something really special, for sure. Okay. What's the best advice you've received?
Well, I was thinking back about Dad again.
Yeah.
But I think having, and I don't remember someone telling me this, but really making myself be more patient.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to want to get going on things and to get things solved and be done and move past things. And sometimes I just have to give myself a break.
Yeah.
And learning to also take care of myself.
Yeah.
Because when you have a single parent and children and a business, you don't do much for yourself. And I can remember when somebody gave me a massage certificate, and it was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really can't think of anything else right now.
Well, that really is good advice because, on this podcast, I ask this question to almost every single guest on the podcast. And more often than not, they're kind of stumped about what do I really do for myself? And I asked the question about self-care. And so taking care of yourself, that's really good advice, right? Okay. Last question in the lightning round robin. Do you have any furry friends in your studio?
Oh, I do. We always seem to have a cat and a dog, and we had lost our cat, and my son is the best person to find stray cats.
Oh.
And he called me one day and said, Mom, listen. And here's this loud purring.
Yeah.
And he had found this little kitten by a dumpster. He walked by and it was eating flies. And so he took it and got it all went to the vet and got shots, got it all cleaned up and everything. And he said, Nina really needs a good home and she'd like to come to your studio. And we had just moved into our new house. And so I said, well, I'll come visit. And so I went up to Portland, and of course, she's really a cute little kitty. And she is 16 years old. And I'll tell you, she thinks she owns the studio. If I have a friend come over or something, boy, here she comes. And she's made a place to sleep. She can go up the stairs and then jump over to the bookcase. And so on the very top shelf, she has her little place she likes to nap.
Yeah. Oh, from stray cat to living in luxury.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jean, for braving the lightning round robin. That was fun. So let's just give a little recap. So the website is stitchinpost.com. Stitchin Post doesn't have a G in it on Stitchin.
Nope.
For social media, people can also find Stitchin Post OR on Facebook or just Stitchin Post on Instagram. So that's where we can find you on the socials. So this is where we'll find posts about all of the Quilters Affair workshops, including the 5 workshops I'll be teaching. I'm so excited to attend Quilters Affair and the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. I'm staying those extra days to be there for the whole show for the very first time. So I'm really excited about that. It's been on my bucket list for years, like I said earlier. Now, as we wrap up, Jean, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation today?
Just to be brave and to be conscious of possibilities and give yourself time to really immerse yourself in creativity. Yeah. I don't know. I keep a little journal. I don't write in an everyday type journal, but I put ideas in it. And one thing leads to another. And I think people are really blessed that have a hobby, if you want to call it a hobby, or an interest. And especially as you get older, I have a lot of people that have never done anything that show up at the Stitching Post. They've moved to the area to retire. And our beginning classes are well attended, but they just never had things that they did for themselves. And I feel like we've been able to really, I don't want to say just help lots of people, but be a resource for people in their creativity. And I just want them to stay curious.
Yeah. I love that. Give yourself time, explore, stay curious. Such great advice. What a great way to end the show. Jean, it's been so great to have you on the show. Thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, and it's really nice meeting you. I can hardly wait to see you in person.
I know. I can't wait either. Okay, so that was my show with Jean Wells. I really loved every minute of this conversation. There's something so grounding about talking with someone who has seen the quilting industry grow and change over 5 decades. And she has had continued success because she's had a focus on thinking outside the block and seeing what happens. Her entire teaching career has been focused on creative exercises, color design, and taking quilters in dramatic new directions. She has always been on the cutting edge of technique, and her books are an absolute legacy. Stitchin Post is not just a quilt shop, but a gathering place. All of this, along with Quilters Affair and the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show, all of it has created connection for thousands and thousands of quilters over the years. And Jean's story continues through generations with family members getting involved, especially her daughter Valerie, now leading the business on her own, in her own way, while still carrying forward that same welcoming and educational spirit. I hope this episode is a reminder to you that quilting is about more than the act of making something with your wonderful hands. It's about the people. And today, I loved sharing the story of Jean Wells with you. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. 2 things I want to say. The first thing is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. It means the world to me and my team, which consists of James, my podcast producer, DG, my virtual assistant, and Luna, my chocolate lab. This podcast really is a dream that started with the notion of surrounding myself with people who lift me up, but it has turned into so much more than that. We absolutely couldn't have imagined becoming an award-winning podcast, but secondly, we feel like we're only just getting started. And if you enjoy what we do here, please go to your favorite social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or even YouTube, and follow Quilter on Fire. It's one small thing you can do for free to support this show. And here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I'll do everything in my power to make this the best show I can, just for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Quilter on Fire podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps me reach more quilters just like you, striving for that perfect quilty lifestyle. Click on those 5 stars and share what you loved most about today's episode. Don't forget to hit the follow button if you haven't already. With new episodes dropping weekly, you won't want to miss out on the inspiring stories and tips we have in store. Until next time, dream big and have fun in the studio with the Quilter on Fire.